Welcome back to the Explanation Pro. Today I'll recap a drama, romance, and sci-fi film called Fatherland. Spoilers incoming. Germany dominates most of Europe in an alternate world where Nazi Germany wins the Second World War. Germany is also involved in a long-running Cold War with Russia and against US-backed partisans. The Soviet Union's eastern half is the only former Allied power defying Nazi rule, and the Eastern Front has become the Reich's equivalent of the Vietnam War. At the same time, Western Europe is absorbed into what Hitler refers to as Germania. In 1964, Berlin was preparing for two significant occasions: Hitler's 75th birthday celebration and a historic meeting between Hitler and the anti-Semitic President Joseph P. Kennedy II of the United States. In hopes of ending the Cold War by staging a summit, Hitler will sign a cooperation agreement with U.S. President Joseph Kennedy. In this alternate reality, the common understanding is that Europe's Jews are resettled in the East. Although many people recognize this as unlikely, the Jews' true fate is unknown, and the Nazis' claimed tales of massacres are communist propaganda. A week before the summit, a young SS officer is out jogging when he notices three men doing something suspicious and fleeing in a black car. Not wanting to be seen, he hides behind a tree. As they leave, he recognizes one of the men, and upon closer inspection of the lake, he discovers a body. Later, the authorities come to investigate the case, with SS detective Xavier March heading it. The dead man turns out to be Joseph Buhler, a retired Nazi Party official who managed the Jewish resettlement to the German territories in Eastern Europe during the Second World War. Later, the Gestapo takes over the case for state security. At the same time, 25-year-old American journalist Charlie Maguire arrives in Berlin to cover the upcoming summit between President Kennedy and the 75-year-old Adolf Hitler. On the bus, the man beside her introduces himself as Walter Elliott from CBS. He recognizes her last name and tells her he worked with her father, a diplomat at the time. While the tour guide is welcoming their stay in Berlin, they see multiple examples of Nazi propaganda. As they arrive at the station, they are instructed to follow the regulations, like needing a camera permit. As she is about to leave, an envelope containing a vintage photograph of a group of Nazi leaders is given to Charlie by a mysterious man. Later on, March interviews the cadet who discovered the body, Hermann Jost. He reports to the detective that he saw three men leaving the crime scene. But upon further questioning from the detective, Jost admits that he saw the body being dumped by Odilo Globus Globonik, the chief of the Gestapo. He is shocked upon hearing this, asking him if it is him, and the cadet confirms it. Meanwhile, Maguire decides to visit the address in the photograph, which leads her to Wilhelm Stickert, another retired party official. A man who greets her by the door tells her where to go. Seeing Stickert's apartment door open, she calls out, but no one answers. She enters and finds him with a woman shot dead and naked on the bed. The police then take her to the department's main office for questioning. After that, Arthur Neeb, March's superior, reassigns him to the Stickert case and warns him not to conduct further investigations because the Gestapo has now claimed jurisdiction. But he secretly gave the go-ahead to examine the connections between the Stickert and the Buhler cases. Later, he interrogates Maguire about her relation to the Stickert case. He takes Maguire to the crime scene, but the Gestapo claims jurisdiction. She also notes that it is now a different man from the one who let her in earlier. The Gestapo suddenly arrives, and March instructs Maguire to escape them. Later, at a carnival, March is enjoying his time with his kid, but they see the many Nazi advertisements targeted at children, so they decide to go home. His son sees a picture of a disabled boy in a magazine and says that it is cruel that the boy's parents let him grow up that way, and he suggests that the parents should have put him to sleep. His father asks why, and his son answers that it's because other people think that way, as well as his mom. So his father tells him a story of an old clockmaker with a hunched back that kept growing, and it turned out to be wings. The older man was an angel. He told his son that they couldn't kill angels, and his son nodded, understanding the moral of the story. Back in his office, he discovers that the young cadet who found the body is now dead. He died during an apparent training accident, which he suspects is not an accident. He calls Maguire in code to arrange a meeting with her. As she goes to the park for their appointment, she becomes paranoid and constantly looks over her shoulder. March manages to convince her to work with him to find the men's identities in the photo in exchange for her passport, which was confiscated earlier by the police. They both decide to team up with each other to find out what is happening and why the Gestapo is hell-bent on keeping it a secret. After that, they travel to WWII, a house for the blind. It is where they held the meeting initially and where soldiers are recovering from the war. They inquired but only found out that the WWII conference was held there. March brings them to the WWII archives to find out who else was in that meeting. Inside WWII archives office, March asks his friend Anna, who works there, to look for a record of the meeting in WWII and who was involved in it. She finds the documents listing who had attended the meeting and identifies the men in the photo. The men who participated in the conference have all been found dead under suspicious circumstances, except for one. The only survivor is Franz Luther, the older man who gave McGuire the picture, and urges him to leave, as she doesn't want to be involved in their investigation. As they go, Anna is called on by her superior to ask why March was there. Afterward, March tells McGuire what he found out. March tells her to get out of Germany since he now realizes there is a plot by the regime's highest levels to cover up whatever they discussed at that conference. He theorizes it may be why the Gestapo are trying to stop their investigation. That night, as she is preparing to leave for the airport, Luther contacts McGuire and asks her to meet him at a train station. Luther waits for her at the train station the next day but quickly boards the train when he notices SS troops approaching and questioning several older men like him. He spots her on the train and requests that she communicates his desire for safe passage to the United States Embassy in exchange for what he knows about the biggest secret of the war. He also gives her an envelope, saying she needs it to prepare their travel papers. At the next train stop, SS troops manage to corner Luther and kill him, but March manages to rescue McGuire and decides to take her to the airport so that she is safe. Sometime later, McGuire finds a picture of Luther and a woman in the envelope, which they assume is his wife. They go to Luther's home, seeing that the Gestapo have taken the wife, but they realize the woman's picture is not his wife. After that, March blackmailed a colleague to get Luther's file, threatening him to reveal that he would inform internal affairs of his misconduct. He soon learns that Luther had a mistress, the former stage actress Anna von Hagen. The next day, McGuire assumes the identity of an employee of the American embassy and goes to Hagen's place. She claims she is there to help facilitate Luther's and her safe exit to America. She tells her that Luther sent her to pick up his papers before the embassy gave them travel documents. Fortunately, Hagen buys her cover. As Hagen gives her the papers, she suggests the possibility of an alliance between America and Germany. They can finally do something with America's Jews as they did with theirs in Europe. Perplexed by what she is implying, McGuire inquires about what they actually did to them. She tells her that the Jews were shipped to Eastern Europe to resettle them. Hagen emphasizes that the air relocated them by turning them into smoke. Burning the Jews would be easier than shooting them, saying that killing the gypsies, lunatics, and cripples needed the 6 million bullets. Continuing her story, Hagen reveals that it was all according to what they decided at the WWII conference and all planned by Reinhard Heydrich. She also compliments Stickert for his genius plan to send postcards to Jewish relatives in America. The postcard says that the Jews are well and are being taken care of. They have relocated somewhere and are safe. McGuire is shocked upon hearing all of this and quickly leaves the apartment. After McGuire tells March everything Hagen has revealed, he denies it. He claims it was a forgery and believes that the Jews were relocated to Ukraine, as they have all been told to believe. They are horrified by the pictures and the program's documents named the final solution, which prove that the events happened. As she continues to read, she finds out that the Jews were robbed of everything they owned and gifted to the German troops. March starts questioning his loyalty to the fatherland, as it has now sunk in that he helped kill an entire race of people. McGuire has now figured out that Luther and the other men were killed as they were the final link to WWII, and Hitler needed them dead before he met with Kennedy. March hypothetically asks if the American government knows what they know as well. If the US President, Joseph Kennedy, would still have the meeting with Hitler, but she doesn't know. So March tells her to bring the document to the American embassy immediately, as she is safe while Kennedy is there and that she has to leave the country too. She also manages to convince him to go with her to America, saying she won't go without him and that she will meet him later at night at the park. So she leaves immediately to bring the documents to Kennedy directly. So he decides to join McGuire and escape Germany with his son, Pilly. Later that night at the ceremony, McGuire is denied entry because she has no badge, even though she is part of the press. saying that she must have dropped her badge somewhere. Fortunately, the bus tour guide assisting the other press members remembered and let her in. Inside the bus, she is looking for her colleague, Walter Elliott. She spots him and immediately asks for his help, telling him about the documents as they have little time and saying they need to get them to the president. They both flee as she notices a Gestapo member pursuing them. Meanwhile, March convinces his son to go to America, saying that he will tell Pilly's mom later and that they will stay in America for a very long time. Pilly agrees to go with him. Going to his room, he picks up the telephone and calls someone, seeing that he hasn't packed yet. His father asks what's bothering him, and Pilly tells his father that he is sick, as the Gestapo told him, and they want to help him, revealing to him that he has called them. March is shocked at this, telling him that they are lying to Pilly, but they are already there outside, and March is lured into a trap by Globus. During his escape, March kills a Gestapo agent but is mortally wounded, but he manages to reach a phone booth to call Pilly one last time, telling him that it wasn't his fault and that he doesn't blame him, and then he dies due to blood loss from his bullet wound. As Kennedy arrives in Berlin for the ceremony, Elliott calls out the U.S. ambassador and gives him the documents, urging him to give them to the president. When President Joseph Kennedy looked at the materials, he finally understood what had happened. So, the president abruptly cancels the scheduled meeting with Hitler and immediately flies back to the United States. Meanwhile, McGuire has left the ceremony and gone to the park to await the arrival of March. She has no idea that March has already passed. In the end, the narrator reveals that he is the grown-up Pilly. He notes that although the Gestapo eventually arrested McGuire, the revelation of the extermination of European Jews derailed any prospect of an alliance with the United States. This ultimately led to revolutions across Europe that resulted in the Nazi regime's collapse. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe my channel for more videos like this. See you in the next video.